All right, everybody, let's go and get started. So once again, thanks for joining us today. Today's session, Minimize Risk Across Your Supply Chain, is brought to you by Exostar and e2open. My name is Kevin Hancock, Director of Solutions here at Exostar, and I'm joined by Adrian. I'll let Adrian introduce himself when he comes on. I'm going to be speaking first, so I'll cover a portion, then we'll hand it over to Adrian. But also want to let everyone know, if you do have a question during today's session, you can type that question into the question and answer button, or you can type it into the question and answer section, which you'll see on a button within your Zoom screen. And we'll answer those at the conclusion of today's session. So when we're talking about Exostar and e2open and our partnership, it's really about allowing organizations in highly regulated industries, and in this particular case, the defense industrial based companies, to do that digital transformation around their supply chain. It's when you want to work more closely with your supply chain partners, really across any facet of that transaction or across that supply chain relationship. You want to be able to um, get orders, place orders, collaborate around orders, look at inventory, get those forecasts, etc. You want to link those together with your ERP system, but you want to engage that and you want to engage with those partners in a trust relationship that allows you to do this in a compliant manner that meets the compliance requirements of your particular industry. So with Exostar, we enable that because we have this trusted community of organizations and users. This community has been developed over the last 20 plus years. And it was started, if you will, by those large prime contractors who wanted to work just to solve these same issues you're looking for today. So how do I work better with my supply chain? And I know that that supply chain works with others in my particular industry. And how do I do this at both an organization level? Because, at the end of the day, our relationships are between both organizations, but also with those individuals in those organizations. How do I bring those into a community? How do I allow those members to work together seamlessly and provide them access to the applications that they need to do those daily, that daily work across the supply chain? So Exostar is going to work at both that organization and individual level. It's going to vet those organizations. It's going to provide those users credentialing and proofing to allow them access to particular applications. Those applications are hosted in a compliant manner to make these overall solution compliant with particular regulations and compliance needs. We're going to continually monitor that and offer this out as a service with our great partners like e2open, who are leaders in their particular space. And we do this via the Exostar Platform. So the Exostar Platform sits on top of these users and organizations, right? That community that typically works not only with one company in the defense industrial base, but usually with many others. And we want to be able to lower that barrier to entry when you want to start a relationship with that organization. So as a member of the Exostar community, you can be sure that that organization has been onboarded. And when that organization was brought into the community, it passed certain checks. So for example, it's not on a denied parties list, and that list is checked, vetted every day to ensure that that organization maintains that they're not on it. But then also, though our relationship as a company is with another company or organization, we're actually providing users access to information. And because they have access to information and we work in this highly regulated industry, the defense industrial base, we need to ensure that those users have the right credential, the right proofing to assure that they have the rights to get that information, that we enforce things like multi-factor authentication, that the applications like e2open are hosted and managed within a compliant manner that meet those things like FedRAMP moderate or FedRAMP moderate equivalency, that they meet the ITAR requirements of our bill of materials and things like that. As we work together, as we collaborate on delivering the solutions, products, et cetera, that are needed by agencies, departments, to fulfill these particular needs. So again, all of this sits on top of that Exostar community, providing that ease of entry once you've decided you want to work with somebody. So Exostar works on a principle of connect once, collect once, and then provide access to all. So once you're in, that information is there, and you can utilize those same credentials, those same username, passwords, etc., to get into the information you need to collaborate with your supply chain partners. So as I mentioned before, we really start with that organization onboarding. And that onboarding module that's part of the Exostar platform is where we start that. So in Exostar, when you want to work with another organization, another company, you first search the Exostar community. You'll typically see that those organizations are already there. So once you've identified that organization, you first search Exostar, you find them there, and you can invite them to work with you. When you invite them, you can send information that you want to gather about that particular organization, their compliance requirements. And so Exostar has standard forms that are sent to that organization that they fill out before you've ever let them into any other parts of your collaboration suite, before you've started to work with them within your supply chain applications. That information is vetted from forms and information that was developed by a working group of CISOs across the defense industrial base, tried to standardize those questions and information that you need to provide. And that goes into a master data model that Exostar maintains across its community. That master data model can then be shared when you're invited by another organization. So, you're working with company Alpha, company Bravo wants to work with you. They send you these forms. If you get these forms and you filled them out before, it'll already be pre-populated with your information. You just have to check, verify, etc., and then submit that to the other organization. Once again, just greatly reducing that cycle time and that, if you will, give and take about filling out information, providing, etc. You really only have to collect it once and then connect once into that overall community. Now, but we do have that flexibility within this module to gather additional information as well. So once you've, if you can clone forms and add additional information to them, or you can create standalone forms just for your organization. You can then report across all of that information as needed for your particular organization. You can do an approval process, et cetera, around those forms. And then once you've got them into the community, you've agreed that they meet your particular requirements, then you can join them to applications. But again, access to applications is done at the individual level. So which members of those applications do I want to allow in? So Exostar has a delegated federation model where whereas people that are invited in can invite other members of their organization. They can request application access from the provider of that application, and then they can be granted that access by that prime contractor. Those prime contractors, what we call a sponsor, can determine the type of credential and the type of proofing those individuals need to get access to their particular information. This can be everything from a username password to a hardware token with an individual proofing, and all the way to US citizenship proofing. So again, and the sponsors themselves can decide what they want to do and enforce around that. And you can do it for different applications, and you can do it for different levels of information within those applications. All of that leads to kind of the particular Exostar customer example with e2open providing that best of breed industry leading applications within that supply chain space to provide that overall supplier portal, provide access to the organizations and users that I need to work with across my partners, provide access to those individual applications that they need to work with, and then connect that into your internal systems where you can then put that into your ERP systems, do inventory, controls, et cetera, around that. We do this all in a compliant manner that meets those FedRAMP and other requirements, UK moderate, et cetera, or UK sensitive, I should say, for the particular use case for your organization. Now, let me pass it over to Adrian to talk a little bit more about those applications and what the e2open platform does to ease this this journey, if you will.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Kevin. So while we're switching screens here a little bit, I thought I'd introduce myself briefly as Kevin did earlier. My name is Adrian Lumpp. As I mentioned, I've been with e2open now for going on 5 years. I've had the privilege of working with Exostar for all of those 5 years, although my experience in supply chain in general extends, well, I'm going to date myself, over 30 years now, so I'll show my age right away. So we'll start where Kevin left off. And I thought, before we drill in, I thought it'd be good for us to recognize where e2open and Exostar dovetail. And as Kevin noted, for the aerospace and defense or any industry requiring additional security, the e2open solutions are deployed within the Exostar hosting framework that Kevin mentioned previously. If we were representing the e2open platform as shown here, we'd have 4 primary components. However, when our solutions are deployed within the Exostar technology stack, the bottom 2 components, the digital twin, and of course the integration layer, are replaced with Exostar's FedRAMP, compliant layers. So for the remainder of our conversation today, we'll focus on the top 2 layers from an e2open perspective, and we'll further refine our discussion by focusing on the supply collaboration suite on the far right, and some aspects of global trade that we'll touch on later in the presentation, a little bit represented in the middle. And while it's worth noting that regardless of the modules to which our clients subscribe through Exostar, the Harmony UI that's represented in this stack is common for all users of the platform, whether it's you as our client or the supplier network or trading partner network that you support on the platform. So to start with, let's start with supplier collaboration, as this is the most commonly deployed module within the Exostar community on our platform. Certainly this module is a foundational component for many of the additional value add modules that we support. Supplier collaboration within the e2open platform sets out to provide some key functional support in 3 primary areas. First, this module includes expanded orchestration with industry-leading multi-tier collaboration capabilities around monitoring materials, materials in transit, supply availability, risk identification that Kevin alluded to earlier, and potentially including mitigation workflows that span the many tiers of your supply chain and logistic providers that are connected through the platform. Next, the tool can be extended to the breadth and depth of your network, from channel partners, distributors, manufacturers, subcontractors, potentially even logistics providers, to enable that true end-to-end and seamless, efficient business process orchestration. Lastly, but certainly not leastly, the addition of AI and machine learning, those levels of intelligence can sense fulfillment risks at any tier of the organization, including both upstream and downstream networks, and potentially provide mitigation options to help resolve those exceptions for improved process orchestration. So in a nutshell, and I realize that's a mouthful, but that's what supplier collaboration is intended to solve for. So let's drill in a little bit more. And users of our platform purchase components and materials from hundreds, if not thousands, of suppliers. Generally, thousands, if not millions, of POs per year. And leverage many different flavors of ERP, whether it be SAP, Oracle, or other bespoke ERP systems. However, because POs are still often exchanged with suppliers through spreadsheets or PDF documents, even in an aerospace and defense industry, manufacturers, like yourselves, often or almost immediately lose visibility into the status of each of those POs and when the goods that are attached to them actually will arrive. So frequent changes to POs that were already submitted compound the visibility problem, leaving manufacturers like you without the ability to plan or respond to potential last-minute disruptions. Ultimately, this can lead to not only higher operating costs, but increased expedite costs, and last but certainly again not least, the general lack of confidence in supplies arriving when you need them. We often talk about this disruption in the form of delays, but for aerospace and defense industry, as we've learned, it's as much about stuff arriving just in time as it is being late. So often disruptions can occur because of large components arriving early for final assembly when your company is expecting just on-time delivery. So something else that specifically for this industry that we're accustomed to managing. So, solving for these challenges requires a true end-to-end view of your supply chain and a platform that can manage it and collaborate with all the participating members. But that's a foundational element of essentially what we provide. So once an organization implements a solution from our platform, such as order collaboration, it's easy to add more capabilities in the future for better visibility, coordination, control over the full supply chain itself. The combined platform between Exostar and e2open creates that digital representation of both your internal and your external network. We connect to your internal ERP and financial systems by using certified adapters for timely feeds. We can use that to help normalize and cleanse the data to make it decision grade and consumable by the modules that you as our client would subscribe to on the platform, and potentially leverage the same integration and harmonization for connection with outside sources that we're integrated with. Using some level of machine learning and the algorithms that are associated with that, supply chain management applications like ours can process that data both bidirectionally, as I mentioned, and help create that closed loop communication back to an ERP system or other systems of record for execution. So as I mentioned, as a foundational component, order collaboration connects our clients with any number of critical supply chain tiers with bidirectional communication through the entire management of an order, order lifecycle management. This includes, and itemized down at the bottom of the slide, real-time visibility through our large network of suppliers, of course, of which, as Kevin mentioned, many of those are already enabled on the Exostar network. And it also includes several different security options for onboarding those suppliers through, and other trading partners for that matter, not just your direct suppliers, with minimal constraints for how we connect. And that can include a number of options for what we refer to as long tail, as well as UI adoption and system-to-system integration. So what's not called out here on screen, but I thought it's worth mentioning, is that when we combine order collaboration, for example, with a solution like forecast collaboration and or inventory collaboration, the ability of the tool to identify and manage exceptions through standard workflows can be especially powerful for users at all levels and relationships with our clients, both internally and externally. So as you've heard me say and noticed, I continue to refer to order collaboration as foundational technology. While not necessarily a simple problem to solve, this module is often phase one of a more extensive transformation, including other value add solutions from our platform. So let's look a little bit more at another part of our solution stack that's likely a pressing need and a topic of conversation for our webinar today for most businesses. Um, as you're likely aware, most geographies have either recently enacted or plan to legislate requirements around forced labor and or product or item traceability. Some of these are shown on screen here, but certainly it's not an exhaustive list. But as you're aware, this list continues to grow as more regions adopt more controls in this area. So as the list of controlled materials and components seems to grow, so does the regulation around them. Year over year, that list gets longer and longer. So as we begin to focus on where we add value, focusing specifically on forced labor legislation, there's really four primary components that we talk about, or pillars, where we need to be or support compliance and mitigate risk to your business. First, we need to be able to identify those suppliers that participate in your company's overall value chain. At minimum, this would be tier one suppliers, which you're likely already connected with in some way, shape, or form. And as I mentioned, with collaboration as a foundational element, certainly we'd expect that those relationships would exist in some shape or form with our platform through the Exostar module. However, we're not limited to developing this supply chain map through our internal solutions. And often we need to extend it to end tier, tier 3, tier 4, where you may not have a direct relationship to really understand where the risk might exist across your supply chain. We can easily seed the solution as a first step from other systems or third-party solutions through proper integration. Next, we need to be able to vet the list of suppliers against restricted parties list, like Kevin mentioned earlier. And after screening, we need to be able to certify that same group of suppliers through a combination of code of conduct, risk questionnaires, audit, and potentially training. And then last but not least, of course, we need to be able to provide a repository for documentation that this process is maintained in the event the business is challenged or audited for compliance. Through all of those portions of this solution, of course, you can achieve some level of compliance. I know the arguments out there, how can we be fully compliant, especially when this tends to be a moving target? Of course, the expectation is that technology like ours would continue to evolve to support that. And certainly that's our business goal as well. All right, so how is e2open uniquely positioned to support these requirements? And first we'll begin by identifying who those in-tier suppliers are through structured workflows that support both process and progress tracking, combined with a powerful UI and graphical UI that gives the user a clear understanding of the complexity of the supply chain network. Next, we'll screen and certify those suppliers against restricted party lists, of which e2open maintains an exhaustive list of participants or members of that restricted party list through our global knowledge set. This can also be accomplished through a combination of Exostar tools and e2open questionnaires and training. But at the end of the day, that's part of the screen and certify component. And while not mentioned on the previous slide, our solution is capable of providing a more holistic assessment of risk by incorporating outputs from existing third-party risk management solutions, and we can certainly talk more about that at a later date. And while I heard referring to SKUs, we have a rule in my side of the business to never talk about them. This is actually one of them that makes a lot more sense and a lot more descriptive. So we refer to this solution loosely as supply network discovery, as you see called out there on the bottom of the screen. All right. So tying this all together, what does it mean for your industry, specifically for aerospace and defense? So beginning with assurance of supply, by using our solutions within the Exostar framework, of course, our clients have much greater confidence in their ability to meet their SLAs to their customers and reduce costs related to specifically expedites and potentially excess inventory management. By extending the platform, as we just talked about, including supply network discovery, supply risk identification becomes a real business benefit. This can include the ability to proactively identify disruptions from natural disasters, legislative changes, or other geopolitical challenges that may impact capacity or cause material shortages. And then, once we're able to identify the challenges, we can begin to mitigate those risks through a variety of workflow and prioritization, as well as potentially some systemic resolution options that we present to the users as part of those workflows. So I know I'm about out of time, so I figured, while time doesn't allow for a demo today, I thought we'd at least end with a visual of what supply network discovery cockpit looks like. We could certainly spend a lot of time discussing this screenshot by itself, but for simple reference, this is one example of how we visually map into supplier communities and tie this back to specific order value and impact. Of course, these dashboards are highly interactive and allow for drill down and scenario refinement for the users that have access to them. So I've left a few minutes. We'll go to Q&A and see how we can respond to in the time that we have left.
Yeah, Adrian. So I've got it pulled up here, and we've got a few in the Q&A. Let me ask the one that that addresses kind of what you were just talking about. So on that supplier network discovery, so where have you implemented this?
Good question. And it is a new module for us. It's actually our newest module, so it hasn't been widely deployed yet. But that being said, it is being deployed actively in two of our largest automotive clients. And this is a module that could continue to evolve and refine with additional AI and machine learning tools. But it is a solution that's often in those two examples implemented in combination with other solution sets or other modules from our platform, including collaboration.
Great. And I'll take the next one. So it says, how do I know if my suppliers are already part of the Exostar network? So this is typically part of any engagement we have with a customer. So, obviously, if you're already an Exostar customer, it's really easy, right? You basically go into our onboarding module, you type in the name of the company, and you'll get kind of every company in there that has that name, and you can choose which one is actually the right one you're looking for. But obviously, if you're a new customer, we can also do a supplier match. So we can take your list of current suppliers, and it's typically you just give it to that in a CSV format. We can do a match against that community, and we can provide those results to you. Now, typically what we see is somewhere between a 60 to 70% match in kind of that first pass. And then obviously there is always an onboarding process for those other suppliers that are outside that, which can also be done, fairly easily, with mass import tools and things like that. So I think we got time for one more question, Adrian. So let me ask that of you. So where can we find out more about the supplier collaboration?
Good. Yeah, I was actually going to post that. So maybe if one of our moderators, if not, I can put it in there. I know we're about out of time.
Yep.
Our website does have a number of resources, both for the supplier network discovery as well as the collaboration tools. And I think that may have already been answered by one of our moderators. But if not, we'll certainly get back and reply to the attendee list with that link.
Perfect. Well, that takes us right to the bottom of the hour. And I want to thank everybody for your time and attendance today. Adrian, thanks so much for joining me today. And everyone,
Thank you,
just
Kevin.
have a great rest of the day.
Take care.